Welcome back to the JCS podcast here. We are wrapping up the week of September 28th. So kind of what's going on around Jenison Christian the week of September 28th, that Monday here. Starting us off, I'm going to kick it right. I'm Mr. DeVries in case you forgot, but I'm going to kick it right to Mr. Ponstein for some JCS news.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you again for listening. First off, JCS auction just finished up this past Monday, the 28th. Thank you all for all their participation. I know there are a lot of moms and dads volunteering to get this thing up and running. This is our auction that was supposed to be back in March, is now in this fall here. As of right now, we're for surely over $19,000, but it's counting. People are picking up items this coming Thursday, October 1, and the morning of October 3. Thank you guys. Make sure you make your pickup times and your payment either check or cash to Jenison Christian School. Excited to see our totals come next week. Next, we got sports and volleyball. Those braids, Mr. DeVries, that you talked about last week, they just fell short to Byron Center in a close set of 26-24. I guess there was a little bit of controversy there. It was 24-24. Byron Center got the next point to go up by 1, and they celebrated like they won. They forgot that they had to win by 2, so the girls argued it. They fought off into another point, but they ended up still losing the next point to drop 26-24. Football, the 7th and 8th graders play tonight, and they're going against the Spartans, not Michigan State, Sparta, the Sparta Spartans. What a battle that should be, as it is raining currently. And Saturday, our golf tournament kicks in at Pines Golf Course, 8:30 a.m. in the morning, kickoff time. Kickoff, what would you say there?
Tee-off.
Tee-off time. Thank you, or a shotgun start. There's going to be 89 students from all over the Christian schools that are participating in this tournament. So it is going to be quite the atmosphere at the Pines Golf Course. Remember your golf clap. That's Eagle News. Thank you for listening. Mr. DeVries, we're now for the joke of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Ponstein. And I am so just grateful that I get to bring the joke of the day. And I'll tell you what, I'm even running material a little bit early on my classes. I ran it past my both 6th grade classes, and I tell you, you talk about splitting a gut on this one. If I could bottle up that energy, okay, here you go. You ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. If Moses, Moses from the Bible, right? If he wasn't leading God's chosen people through the wilderness into the promised land, what would he have done?
He would have knocked down Jericho?
Not quite. I appreciate the answer. But no, he would have worked for Starbucks because Hebrews.
Hebrews.
Right?
A barista?
Yeah. Because Hebrews. Moses, what do you want? Your caramel macchiato today. Because Hebrews.
Absolutely. I'd get a s'more frappuccino in this nice, cool temperature of fall.
Oh, you got to go hot. You got to go hot right now.
That's true. You're right. What am I thinking?
I was thinking on this joke of the day, like, we're just having coming from us as we're dads here.
Yep.
Like, the dad jokes, they just...
Killing it.
It's a reflex once you have kids. And segue, speaking of kids...
Yes.
My wife, Lindsay, Mrs. DeVries, as maybe she's affectionately called, is due any day here.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Mr.
I felt
DeVries.
a little last week, as we were doing our intros. Of course, you kind of gave the, hey, I got a beautiful wife. Here's my kids, and I didn't do that.
I left you hanging.
Yeah, you did. It's like the going around the table when someone's like, hey, what was the best day you've ever had, and you don't mention it was your wedding day or your kids being born. I felt like that was me a little bit last week, so I'm gonna make up for it. We're gonna talk kids here.
All right.
And we're gonna talk kid names. So I had all my students try to guess my upcoming baby boy's name and see how they could come up with it. It's funny reading. Me and Lindsay love reading the names. So I'm just interested. When you have little boy Zion just turned 1, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you and Mrs. Ponstein, how did you guys decide on that name?
Yeah, so we actually decided it in Spain. We were in Spain last summer, and that was going to be our name trip. And so we put out a whole spreadsheet on Excel. All right. And because you got to do this, right? You got to look at the meaning of the name.
You're a math teacher. You're like science.
Got to get it organized. Got to get it ready to go. So meanings, and both Rachel and I loved a biblical name. So we're trying to find a unique biblical name. We're looking at nicknames. Do we, what are other people going to call him?
That's big. You got to be ready for, I'm not going to be the person that decides the nickname. You got to try to guess it a little
Exactly.
bit.
I mean, you got grandparents, you got, future teachers, friends that they're going to come up with a nickname, and you got to make sure that you're okay with that nickname. So I think that was a big one. Making sure that it flows with the middle name. We knew that his middle name was going to be Mark. My middle name is Mark. My dad and my grandpa's a fourth generational middle name, and so we had to make sure that it flowed well with Mark. But what about you? You got to figure out this name. Are you guys in agreement right now?
We're in agreement. So all the students were kind of like, Mr. Reese, are you going to take these as suggestions? And it's like, no, I'm really more seeing if you're going to be able to guess it. But we're in agreement. I say we weren't as maybe surgical as you and Mrs. Ponstein were.
And that's
more. My wife Lindsay's got names that she likes, and she just kind of throws them at me every once in a while, And I kind of got. I'm not the one in charge, but as far as if I like it, then there's a good chance like we're both gonna like it because she gives me names that she likes, so she's kind of pre-approved it, and then it flips over to me. So she kind of runs a lot of names by me. So we're not spreadsheets, but she's just kind of like, hey, been thinking about this one. What do you think? And obviously, if there's a name she really likes, she'll try to keep bringing it up and pestering me back.
So civil of you two.
Thank you. I like the spreadsheets, though. I do. And I don't
maybe for the third.
Maybe for the third. Maybe I can ask you to send me that one so I can set it up. I think this does, though, bring us into maybe a bigger conversation about names and just like how we see each other. And as you kind of said, hey, Mr. Reese, let's talk about names and naming kids and how we do that since you got a baby coming up. And the first thing I came to when I thought about it was, well, what's the names that God gives us? Yeah. And what's the name, how God sees us and what he calls us? And I'm a big believer, and the Bible backs us up too, right, that he calls us sons and daughters of himself. Yeah. And so one of my classroom expectations here in my class is always to see and treat others as image bearers of Christ, as how Christ would call them a son or a daughter, to treat them that way. Right. And I just think that when you see someone, instead of the mistakes that they've made or the way that they've wronged you in the past, but you see them the way that God sees them, all of a sudden your interactions will change.
I can't agree more. And, Mr. DeVries and those that are listening, I encourage you to read Ephesians chapter 1. That chapter is all about who we are in Christ, who God not only he names us, but that of who he believes that we are as people. He talks about how we are fully known by him, we are redeemed by him, we are chosen. So many words of encouragement that this is how our God views us. And in a name can mean so much. Especially back in biblical times, but in nowadays too, it can mean a lot, but especially if we are called sons and daughters of God. Yeah,
I think that does. I think it starts with us, like you said, like knowing how God views you, that changes you. But then, just for me and in my daily life here at Jenison Christian, to interact with people and to be like, well, how does God view them? And am I viewing them the same way that God views them? And knowing how God views me and how he sees me through the grace of Jesus and the forgiveness that Jesus gives me. And if I can see other students through that, I just know our whole interactions will change. And so, in my classroom, it's like, how can we view that each other more as, like you said in Ephesians 1, is how God sees us? Because I want to be a part of a class that views each other in the light of Ephesians 1.
Right. And then it just goes from there, right? From the classroom to bringing it home to your family. You're taking it to your neighborhood. What an impact you can make now on a bigger scale when you start viewing not only your classmates of image bearers of God and as children of God, but then into your communities, into your churches.
Connects connects right with shining our light, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
of our theme. Another way to maybe shine our light, and as we talked last week, right? Like Spiritual Emphasis Week isn't this thing we want to keep in Spiritual Emphasis Week, but it's a thing that we want to carry.
Absolutely. One other note about names, and I apologize if this is going to be you and Lindsay, but how in the world do people, and I know people like this, where they have their baby and just by the way that their baby looks, that's how they name it. How do they do that?
Those people are crazy.
I don't understand that.
was-
the baby comes out, oh, that looks like a Jimmy. Are you serious? Most babies look pretty similar. I mean, maybe there's more that have hair and less hair, but otherwise, they're like
maybe I'm missing something. I was saying that to a student today too, of like, I don't know how people show up to the hospital and not have a name and say, we'll know it when we see it, because that'd be hard for me.
Right.
But
So if you're listening to this podcast and you've done that, I would love to know just how you did that.
Thanks for listening again to the JCS podcast. Little update on the baby name. My wife and I had a beautiful baby boy, Leland James, born on Thursday, October 1. Because of this, we won't have a podcast next week for the week of October 5. We'll see you the following week. Music on here by Kai Gun Soul. Thanks for listening.